Good morning. Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, there are a couple of things that I want to talk about this morning. Donald Trump did an interview with CBS and he made comments about police brutality and the Confederate flag. And I want to take some time to read some excerpts from these particular articles and provide my commentary. I'm really interested in hearing from you. I want to know, what do you all think about these particular issues? So we're going to start first with the police brutality situation. So I'm going to share my screen briefly and read from these articles and then share my thoughts. So just bear with me a second. So during this particular interview with CBS, President Trump said that the killing of George Floyd was terrible, but appeared to bristle when asked why Black Americans are still dying at the hands of law enforcement in this country. In response to that question, he said, "So are white people. So are white people." What a terrible question to ask. So are white people. And then he went on to say, "More white people, by the way, more white people." So we know that this question comes at a time when there are protests all around the country following the killing of George Floyd by Minneapolis police. And you all know the circumstances of that brother's death. And it also follows the death of Breonna Taylor and the brother Ahmaud Arbery. So there has been protests all around the country around this question of police brutality. And you have Donald Trump acknowledging that the death of George Floyd was terrible, but then downplaying the significance of police brutality, making it seem as if more white people are killed by the police, downplaying this question of racism and policing. So, what I want to do is take you all to this article from the Washington Post that addresses this very question about whether or not white people are dying more than Black people at the hands of the police. So, this article from the Washington Post, and I'm going to read the name of the article for you real quick. It says, "Aren't more white people than Black people killed by the police?" And then the answer is yes, but no. And, before I get into what this article says, basically you have Donald Trump making some misleading statements. First of all, white people make up the majority of the people in this country. African Americans only make up like 13% of the people in this country. There are more white people that are killed by the police because there are simply more white people in this country. But when you break it down in terms of the percentages, you will see that a disproportionate number of Black people, or percentage of Black people, are killed by the police. And we're going to go into the statistics in a second. So just bear with me as I scroll through this article. So this article talks about how the Washington Post launched a real-time database to track fatal police killings. And that database continues. And it said, since I think this was for 2015, it tracked the number of people that had been shot. It said at that particular time in this particular year, it said that 1,502 people had been shot and killed by on-duty police officers since January 1st, 2015. It said that 732 were white, 381 were Black. And then this article goes on to say, but the data scientists and policing experts often note comparing how many or how often white people are killed by the police to how many or how often black people are killed by the police is statistically dubious unless you first adjust for population. It says there are nearly 160 million more white people in America than there are black people. Black people make up roughly 62%. White people make up roughly 62% of the US population, but only about 49% of those who are killed by police officers. So let's repeat that. White people make up roughly 62% of the US population, but only about 49% of those who are killed by police officers. African Americans, however, account for 24% of those fatally shot and killed by police, despite being just 13% of the US population. And it says that this means that Black Americans are 2.5 times more likely as white Americans to be shot and killed by police. And it goes on to say this US police officers have shot and killed the exact same number of unarmed white people as they have unarmed black people, 50 each. And that was at this particular time when this article was written. But it said because the white population is approximately 5 times larger than the black population, that means unarmed black Americans were 5 times as likely as unarmed white Americans to be shot and killed by a police officer. And this goes on to, cite a statistic that I've been pointing out for the longest time. It goes on to talk about how blacks are killed at rates disproportionate to their percentage of the US population. Of all the unarmed people shot and killed by police in 2015, 40% of them were black men, even though black men make up just 6% of the nation's population. Just bear with me 1 second. It says a black person shot and killed by the police is more likely to have been unarmed than a white person. And it goes on to say about 13% of all black people who have been fatally shot by the police since January 2015 were unarmed, compared with 7% of all white people. So those statistics make it clear just how disproportionate black people are targeted and killed by the police, in particular, unarmed black men. Unarmed black men make up 40% of the people killed by the police, and we're only 6% of the population. So that's that issue, the issue of police brutality. Basically you have a situation where this president is downplaying the significance of police brutality, downplaying the disproportionate way that black people are targeted by these police, and just putting out misleading information. And this should not be a surprise to anyone that's followed this administration and its response to the question of police brutality. Here you are dealing with a man who has joked about police brutality. He gave a speech before police officers, and he joked about police brutality during that speech. This man has downplayed the significance of police brutality through his spokespeople. He has said that police brutality is a local issue, it's not a federal issue. This man has tried to undermine consent decrees with police departments that were entered at the time when the Obama administration was in office. He's tried to get the U.S. Justice Department out of those agreements. He has downplayed the significance of them. So this man has made it abundantly clear that he doesn't care about police brutality. It's a non-issue for him. even though he did cite, concerns about George Floyd, but he then again turns around and makes this an issue where white people are more victimized by police brutality, when the numbers and the stats and all the news stories that we see make it clear that black people are targeted by these police. Black people are more likely to be harassed by the police, brutalized by the police, and killed by the police. But here you have a president that basically views this police brutality as a non-issue. And this is why, another reminder why elections are so important. But I won't go into that right now. So I'm going to share the second article with you. It deals with this Confederate issue. And he was asked about the Confederate flag. And this comes at a time when people are taking down these statues of Confederates and racists and colonialists and all that kind of stuff. It comes at a time when, again, you have the protests around the country around these issues of race. And this man is basically saying that the Confederate flag is a freedom of speech type of issue. When asked about this, he emphasizes that over and over again, basically defending people's right to wave the flag and, defending states' rights to have those Confederate flags as their symbols. So, and this is not a surprise again, because this man has defended, keeping up these racist statues of these slave owners and bigots and racists and Confederates. So nobody should be surprised by any of this. Nobody should be surprised by any of this, given this man's constant defense and pandering to white supremacists. We saw what happened with Charlottesville, Virginia, how he called those racists, those white supremacists, those rioters, some very fine people. This is this man's base. A lot of these racists and white supremacists support this man because he speaks to their issues. He supports where they stand on these issues. And, this Confederate flag issue is very important because the Confederate flag is a symbol of racism and white supremacy. That's what it is. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go into more about that, about this flag. The Confederate flag represents racism, white supremacy. The Civil War was fought in large part over the issue of slavery. Those Confederates fought for their right to own Black people. They fought for their right to enslave Black people, to beat Black people, to rape Black people, to sell Black people, to rip Black families apart. They fought for those rights. That's why they fought. And these people, not only did they fight to preserve an institution of oppression, the most oppressive institution in human history, these people committed treason against the United States government. They killed, hundreds of thousands of people died during the Civil War, one of the most violent wars in American history. These people were not patriots. These people were traitors to the nation. These people killed hundreds of thousands of people, man. But yet you have this president saying that this Confederate flag is a question of First Amendment rights. Now, I would be curious if he were to say the same thing about a swastika flag, a Nazi flag. Would he say that, that's a First Amendment issue? This is not a First Amendment issue. We know that not only is that Confederate flag connected to past history, the past history of defending slavery, fighting to protect that institution of oppression. That flag was used as a symbol to rally against the civil rights movement. At the time when you had people fighting to desegregate schools and desegregate public accommodations, that was the symbol that those white supremacists brought out to symbolize their resistance to civil rights. When they were, throwing ice cream and all kinds of and soda on Black people who were protesting at those lunch counters, and pushing Black people who were protesting at those lunch counters taunting black people who were trying to integrate schools and terrorizing black people, trying to exercise their basic human rights, like the right to vote, the right to an education, the right to public accommodations. When they protested against those civil rights activists, they would bring out those Confederate flags. It is a hate symbol. That's what it is. It is not just some basic freedom of speech issue. It is about hate speech. And as a president, your instinct should be to condemn hatred. Your instinct should be to unite the American people, not to divide the American people, not to defend white supremacists. But this is what Donald Trump does. He defends these people. And not only was that Confederate flag used as a symbol of hate back during the civil rights movement, it is used as a symbol of hate today. When you saw those militia groups protesting at state capitals around the country, protesting, around this issue of COVID-19 and the closing of businesses and all that kind of stuff, they brought out that Confederate flag. When you saw those protests in Charlottesville, Virginia, where you had those white supremacists there, they had that Confederate flag. That when you see Klansmen protesting, they bring that Confederate flag to those protests. They bring that flag out for a reason, because it epitomizes the hatred that those people support. It epitomizes the white supremacist mindset of those people. And here you had this man basically defending this symbol of white supremacy and racism. And none of us should be surprised, because that is that man's base. His campaign is about hatred. His campaign is about pandering to these hate mongers, these racist and white supremacists. So none of us should be surprised by this. So yeah, I just had to get on here and share my thoughts. I'm really interested in hearing from you. I want to know, what do you all think about this? So please share your views. Shout out to Bonafide 1970. I see you in the chat room. Shout out to T-Boy. So I'm going to read a couple of your comments, and then I'm going to close out. I want to thank people for tuning in. So Bonafide said, at this point, Trump is completely predictable with his nonsense that panders to fellow white supremacists. I don't know why the media keeps interviewing him. Yeah, it's just a shame that, the president of the United States will be out here directly pandering to these white supremacists. He is basically using their talking points. These are the talking points that they use when they try to negate the significance of the movement going on against police brutality. When they come back with slogans like "All Lives Matter" and all this kind of stuff, they're basically trying to negate the arguments that are being raised, negate the concerns that are being raised. And it's just a damn shame, man. It's a damn shame that we have somebody like this in the White House. So I'm encouraging people to vote people out like Donald Trump. So let's see what else. Yeah, so Bonafide made a similar point that I made. He said, I wondered if flying and waving the Nazi flag would also be regarded as a free speech issue. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, they would. I doubt that they would say, okay, I doubt that this man would openly say that that's some free speech issue. He wouldn't dare say nothing like that, because he would immediately come under attack. Just like people like Nick Cannon are under attack just for some basic statements that he's made about race, and because of some statements that one of his guests made on this program, he's under attack. So you definitely know that Donald Trump would be under attack as well if he were to say that a Nazi flag is some free speech issue. And that's what happens. It's like We have to hold this man accountable, man. I know most black people are not voting for Trump, but we really need to get out there and vote to vote this white supremacist out of office. At this point, it's a question of the lesser of two evils. So we need to get out there and vote. You know, because people didn't vote in our community, this man was able to win states like Michigan by a relatively small margin. We need to get out there and vote. If you are concerned about, you know, the state of affairs in this country, you should use every means that is available to you to make a difference. And one of the means available to us is voting. And I'm not saying that voting in and of itself is the answer to everything, but it is a useful tool in our struggle to make a difference in this country. So let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to have a few more minutes. I got to get to work. So I'm going to go through your comments. Yeah, so T-Boy said the fact that people still see the Confederate flag as patriotic shows just how backward society is. He goes on to say the Confederate flag is a symbol of racism, hatred, and betrayal, point blank, period. And Donald Trump subscribes to everything that flag stands for. Exactly. All right, so I want to thank y'all for tuning in. You know, for those of you who are watching on the playback, I'm really interested in what you have to say about these issues. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on my channel. And encourage your friends to subscribe to this channel. I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers and I need your help. Peace and blessings, everyone. Have a great day.